And for today.
Good morning and welcome to Kramer's Corner with a daily technical update. It is Friday, the 5th of July. US was closed yesterday due to the 4th of July, but it will be open today, and we are expecting non-farm payrolls later, so there can be a bit of a market movement, so volatility around the release time. Today we'll start with Samsung Electronics that released earnings this early morning in South Korea, and it was a massive surprise. As you can see here on the daily chart, it already jumped the day before, and this morning also here. This is a London trading. And it jumped even higher here this morning in London trading, 1575. So it's testing its previous peak here from March, April, around these 1600 level. And if we're looking at the weekly chart, well, it has been trading in this rising channel here for the better part of a year and a half or so, and that seems to continue, and it's likely to test the upper rising trend line there fairly shortly. Moving on to the US market, which is, of course was closed, and there is not much movement pre-market. Well, we are in a bullish trend, potential higher to 5,700, Nasdaq 100 also higher, above 20,000, potential up to around 20,500 short term. And just very quickly, as you can see here, Semiconductors, that this is the ETF, the SOX index, ETF, Semiconductor index, pushing higher, and I think we'll see a new all-time high fairly shortly. There can be, of course, be some volatility later today, but this top reversal pattern is likely to be cancelled. Stoxx 50 is currently above 5,000, above the cloud, and if that's also the case at the end of the day, and then I think we will see it pushing higher going into next week, despite the fact that the RSI is still below 60. I think it will come back above 60 here in coming days. Then it will challenge the previous peaks here between 5,080 and 5,120. Question is, can it actually push above that level? But if it does slide back and close below 5,000, it will still be a little bit range bound. DAX also pushing higher above the cloud, about 18,500, 18,630. There's some resistance here, and we can also see the RSI is testing the 60 threshold. If it does close above, which I believe it will, well, especially if we see a close above 18,630, well, then we are in a positive sentiment and potential higher and maybe even our new all-time highs. Also, the Amsterdam index pushing higher this morning. New highs pushing towards 950, fairly strong, and if RSI also breaks above its upper falling trend line, well, then we are in for higher levels. CAC 40 is currently trading around resistance at 77.25. If it does close above, well, then there could be a push towards 7,900. If not, then we'll see it sliding back lower. And finally, the Swiss market, still this range bound between 11,955 and 12,182. That should be it. On the FX market, euro dollar is currently trading above 108.16. That's going to be interesting later today. Will it actually also stay above, and will we get the RSI back above a 60 threshold? Especially if we get above a 108.52, then definitely yes, we are above the cloud at the moment, but later today with the non-farm payroll, maybe that situation can be reversed. So let's see about that. However, what we can see here, the underlying sentiment also on the rising 55 moving average, 100 moving average, and also 200 moving average are currently pointing higher. They're bullish, so I think we'll see euro dollar in the near future in coming weeks will also slowly push higher. Euro sterling. After the election day yesterday, there was no big surprise really, so market had already counted it in. Not much movement in euro sterling. We'll see the next couple of days, but the rejection at 85 here on euro sterling, we should see euro sterling slide lower towards 84.25. Cable, on the other hand, sterling dollar is pushing higher, and currently RSI is above the 60 threshold. If it does close above, well, then we have a potential up to 129 on cable. Also here we have the rising sim moving average, the 55 breaking above 100, the 200 is also rising. So the underlying trend is bullish, and despite the fact that RSI hasn't closed above 60, it is still in a positive sentiment. So I think we will see that we will see cable pushing higher in coming weeks. On the yen pairs, I believe we will see a correction. It's really warming up for it, despite the fact that there's still very strong positive sentiment on the RSI. But we could see a correction down to around 159, possibly 158 to 70, maybe dipping down there before I think we will see dollar yen pushing higher. Euro yen. Also here, maybe it's warming up to form a top and reversal pattern, a little bit of like a doji evening like pattern. It's not the most perfect one. We should have the doji a bit higher up here, but still, if we get a negative day today, a bearish day today, well, then expect a correction down to around 171, 80, 85, possibly all the way down to 170. Spot 20 around that level, which will be a 61.8 correction. But let's see if it's on the other hand pushing higher here, taking out the previous peak. Well, then there's still a potential up to 176 and a half. Aussie yen also looks a little bit toppish at the moment. But there's no divergence on the RSI that was cancelled. So if we get a correction, it will most likely be minor before we see the next push higher on Aussie yen towards 110 level. So keep your stops tight or close, whatever you do. I think we'll get a correction, but we are in an uptrend, so don't think a trend change. Sterling yen. Also here starts to look a little bit weak, but similar to Aussie yen, there is no divergence on the RSI, very strong positive sentiment on the RSI. So I think we will see it pushing higher in coming days or weeks, but sometimes we need a correction. We can see we also got a correction back here after a very strong upwards move, and it's probably only a correction down to test the lower rising trend line, potentially the 38.2 retracement at 202.80. However, as we talked about, there's no strong resistance until around 214. Whether we'll get there is of course debatable, but at least there's no strong resistance on sterling yen until 214, which is going back decades where we saw those levels. On the Aussie dollar, that has broken higher in bullish trend, supported by positive sentiment on the RSI. All the moving averages are pointing higher, potential up to around, and let's just zoom in a little bit, we can see, well, there's no strong resistance until around 68 and a half, 68.70, and I think we will reach that. Probably not in a straight line, but at least that's where we seems to be aiming. 68 is the first level, which is 161.8 projection of this correction there. Dollar Canada, on the other hand, is losing steam, and it seems likely to test the 135.90 support level and the 200 moving average. We are below the cloud, and the moving average is starting to turn around, pointing lower here. The RSI is currently below 40, so let's see here. If it does close below 35.90, well, then there's not much stopping it until around 134, 40, 50 level. Swiss. And I sent out a written analysis yesterday on Euro Swiss. I think we will see a correction, a little bit of correction down to around 96.5, and then we'll see a next upwards move. But we are in an uptrend, and looking at the weekly chart, as you can see here, it is merely just a correction, no divergence on the RSI, still positive sentiment. I think we'll push higher. after a correction. So be careful. It could also not be a correction, and it could just push higher. If it takes out the peak from yesterday, then it could push higher. But it's a possible outcome, a correction there. Dollar Swiss sliding back after being rejected at the 55 moving average, currently below 89. Sorry, yeah, 89 and 90. Could see a little bit of correction, and what we could also see is that the RSI got rejected at the 60 threshold, indicating that we are still in a negative sentiment, and it really needs to take out the 90.5 level, and the RSI needs to close above 64, further upside potential here. So, but a correction down to around possibly maybe even all the way down to 89 at 12 to 61.8 correction. But let's see. That's where that's what it looks like at the moment. The dollar index a little bit heavy. 104.26 support, and then 103.68. All right, let's move on to metals. Gold is currently, as we speak, testing a resistance at 23.69. If we do get a close above, we'll probably also get a closer back above the cloud. It actually never closed below the cloud here. So in terms of that, it's been gold has been still in a bullish sentiment, and the RSI never closed below 40. So if it gets back above 60, and it probably will if we do close it back above here, well, then the gold is back in a bullish trend with potential higher. There will be some resistance at 23.88, 24.15, and of course the previous peak, but I think that we'll see a higher high on gold. Silver also currently testing, very close to be testing at least at the 30.85 resistance, but we are already in a positive sentiment. There's no divergence, so I will consider it being in a bullish trend. We are above the cloud, but it will be further confirmed if we move back above 30.85. Then there's potential higher for silver. Platinum, once again yesterday tested 1015. I wouldn't be surprised if it's eventually will break. I mean, what are we talking? 1, 2, 3, 4 times it tested it. We're very close to being 5 times. Really key level 1015 on platinum. We need a break and a close above, and if we get the RSI back above 60 threshold, well, then there's potential much higher on platinum towards 1100. Palladium in a bullish trend, higher highs, higher low, higher highs. Currently testing 1048 resistance, but we are above the falling trend line here. We are in a positive sentiment on the RSI, so I expect it pushing higher, despite the fact that it could see a little bit of correction down to around 1000. But I think in the bigger picture, which we can also see here on the weekly, it is actually breaking higher on palladium. And finally, copper. When we're talking about metals, currently above the 459 level. If it does, well, then it has reversed this, or at least neutralized this downtrend here. Then we just need the RSI to break back above 60 threshold. Then there is a potential higher towards 487-ish level, where there's some strong resistance, and potential higher above 500. If it fails to close above 459, well, then it could slide back a little bit and be caught range bound here for around 450. On the oil market, very quickly, WTI is very close to again testing 84.46 resistance. This resistance area here is fairly strong, so let's see if we can close above. If they are close above, well, then we're looking at previous peaks here around 87, 60, 65 level, potentially higher. If it slides back, well, then we could see sliding back towards the 81 level. Brent crude, that has been lagging a little bit, finally also moving a little bit higher, but no stronger resistance until around 89 and 90 level. Around these levels here, I think we could save to just add this one. So this is the resistance area for Brent, and the US 10-year Treasury, which will mostly likely be affected today with the non-farm payroll, is a little bit heavy at the moment, and as we mentioned before, 430, 440, that is the range until it really needs to break out 448 or 417. All right, that's all for today. Have a nice day and a nice weekend.